Thank you so much. I'm Senator Suzanne Bonamici, and thank you for adjusting the schedule to allow me to speak today so that I can attend a committee hearing next week at this time. I'm glad you put Representative Harker in between Representative Galizio and Tony Marino and me, lest people think we're at the Italian-American morning at the Washington County Public Affairs Forum. So Bonamici means good friends, by the way. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and talk with you today. I'll spend a little bit of time telling you about my background. Some of you already know me. Many of you, I am a forum member and have been attending for several years. I attended the University of Oregon. I started my educational career actually at Lane Community College in Eugene, where I became a legal assistant. I was working at Lane County Legal Aid at the time, and then transferred almost all of my credits to the University of Oregon and obtained my degree in journalism. I then immediately started law school at the University of Oregon, and I mean immediately, it was almost an overlap. But when I was working at Legal Aid, I got very interested in consumer protection issues. I was doing some financial counseling for people who were being harassed by collection agencies and people who were struggling to pay their bills, and primarily that was because they had medical expenses that they weren't able to pay. After law school, I went back to Washington, D.C. to work at the Bureau of Consumer Protection of the Federal Trade Commission. I was in what was then called the Credit Practices Division. It's now called the Financial Services Division, I believe. And I was working on issues that had to do with consumer credit. And mortgage lending. And it's very interesting to see, and that was more than 25 years ago, it's interesting to see these issues coming back around now. I met my husband in Washington, D.C. He was doing antitrust work at the Department of Justice, and I was doing consumer protection work at the Federal Trade Commission, and it was the Reagan administration. So there were some challenges there with the amount of work that we were able to accomplish. So we moved back from Washington, D.C. to Washington County. And I joined a law firm in Portland and worked there for a couple of years. I had a sort of a specialty in franchise law. I was representing franchisees in disputes with franchisors. And then we had 2 children, and I quickly discovered that the time passes quickly as a parent, and I didn't want to miss time with them, and was able to take a career break. And our daughter Sarah, who's a senior in high school this year at the Arts and Communication Magnet Academy, our daughter Sarah was born in 1990, and that's the year Measure 5 passed. And so as our children went through public schools in the Beaverton School District, and we're firmly committed to public education, I became very involved as a school advocate. I was involved with Coalition for School Funding and Citizens for Beaverton Schools, started going down to Salem, standing on the steps, waving Save Our School signs, and then also doing what I could in the classroom as a parent volunteer, a PTO president, served on site councils, local school committees. I was on the board of the Beaverton Education Foundation for 2 terms. So that was really my passion, and got me involved in the political system and in the Oregon legislature. I was elected to the House in 2006. Brad Avakian was the state representative for this district, and when Charlie Ringo decided to leave his Senate seat and retire from politics, and Brad decided to run for that seat, I threw my name in and went out and started knocking on doors in the 2006 election, and was elected to represent House District 34. I served in the 2007 session on the House Consumer Protection Committee, where Representative Galizio summarized some of the things that we did, addressing the payday lending, ID theft protection. And then in February, we came back and passed a very important bill that I worked a lot on through the Governor's Mortgage Lending Work Group, and that's the bill to deal with foreclosure rescue scams. It has a long name, something like the Foreclosure Rescue Fraud Protection Act. And we found in that work group that a lot of people facing foreclosure are contacted by consultants who offer to help them or save them, and in fact they take their money and don't give them very much help. So we passed a bill to deal with that. I also served on the Judiciary Committee, where we deal with a wide range of public safety issues, and on the Healthcare Committee under Representative Greenlick's excellent leadership, where we passed Senate Bill 329 to create the Oregon Health Fund Board. Then, what happened this past spring was then Senator Brad Avakian was appointed as our state labor commissioner. I was appointed by the Washington County and Multnomah County commissioners to take his place representing 7 17, Senate District 17, which is my old House district, now represented by Representative Harker and Representative Greenlick's House District 33. So those are the two House districts that are in this Senate district. I was appointed to the Senate Judiciary Committee, the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, where I will be attending my first meeting a week from today at this time, and the Oregon Tort Claims Task Force, which is the group that was formed to address how we're going to handle the response to a recent Supreme Court decision dealing with OHSU and tort liability. During the interim, I continue to serve on those Senate committees. We are actually pretty busy during the interim. We have committee hearings. I'm also on several other work groups and task forces. In addition to the Oregon Tort Claims Task Force, I serve on the Office of Administrative Hearings Oversight Committee, the Governor's Mortgage Lending Work Group, where we've been meeting really since the end of the 2007 session to come up with some proposals to respond to the subprime lending issue. I'm also chairing a pesticide work group that's going to reduce our children's exposure to pesticides. And very briefly, my goals for 2009, again, public education. The reason why I ran for the legislature, I won't repeat some of the successes from 2007, but I was very proud of what we did to improve public education. I want to see my pesticide reduction bill get passed to minimize the risks of pesticide exposure for our kids. Implement the recommendations of the Oregon Health Fund Board, continue my work in consumer protection. We will have some proposals coming out of that work group, and also transportation. But one thing that I feel very strongly about is that we have a very unstable tax structure in this state, and we need to start addressing how we can change our tax structure so that we aren't so overly dependent on income tax and facing serious problems when we have a downturn in the economy. So I am running in November. I'm not, like Representative Harker said, I'm not running for re-election because I was appointed, but I am running for this seat. The appointment was only until the next general election, which is November. I do not have an opponent, so if I lose, I'm going to be really embarrassed. But I am running on the November ballot, but I'm also running again in 2010. It's not a four-year race. So I'm running now and in 2010. My website is SuzanneForOregon.com. It's SUZANNE, not Susan. So SuzanneForOregon.com. Please visit my website. Send me your questions and concerns. And again, thank you so much for having me here today. And I look forward to answering your questions if there's time.
Thank you.